Hello, everybody. I'm kind of a mess today, to be honest. Um, but here, I'm gonna send out a tweet. I'll tell you what, the past like 20 minutes, I have been really rushing to try to get ready for this stream, and it's been kind of a disaster. But it's okay. I got it together, sort of at the last second. So let's go. I'm gonna send out a tweet. Uh, I don't know if Charles is coming. Um, Oh, he said he was going to come a few days ago. We haven't talked since, so I'm just maybe he's not coming. I don't know. Maybe he is. I don't know. We'll see. Uh, uh. So yeah. So how's everybody doing? How's everybody doing? Today is a day we got cluster munitions supposedly. I don't know. I haven't actually seen confirmation of that. I have. I'm assuming. And lots of people arguing over what are cluster munitions and whether they're legal. I guess that depends on whose version of law you're looking at. Because if you look at Russian law, they're legal. If you look at American law, they're legal. And if you look at Ukrainian law, they're legal. And those are the three parties, so I guess they're legal. Other countries say they're illegal. Um, but none of those countries are really parties to what's going on, are they? Uh, So yeah, so I'll just give people a minute to join the stream, especially since I didn't like tweet about it or anything. Something very unfortunate happened right here. The video was hard to watch, honestly. I'm not going to show it, but basically, the Ukrainians in this position right here. Uh, what map to use? I'll use this map. Um, uh, Basically, the Russians have a trench right here that you can't see because this image is too old. It's not updated to the trench yet because the trench is relatively new. But anyways, they have a trench here, and they apparently withdrew from this trench. Now I don't know when this happened. I just know that I saw the video today. So, but they withdrew from this trench apparently, and the Ukrainians ran up this hill, I guess, and into this trench, and the trench was booby trapped. So uh, a lot of the Ukrainians got killed by the trench. It was a combination of being booby trapped and getting shelled. Not a good combo. So that was an unfortunate event that happened right there. Uh, so yeah, so I'll just give just kind of I'm just gonna slow rolling it to start off the stream because people typically take about 10 minutes to join. So I'm just kind of going slow in the beginning. So yeah, I guess I'll turn Russia back on. Um, so yeah, I don't know what to say. I was I don't know what to. I'm just kind of buying time. Do any of you have like a question while we buy time? What's a lot? From the video, it looked like okay, so like a platoon attacked. It looked like a platoon, like 30 people maybe, and it looked like 10 of them were either killed or wounded, at least, if not more. So it was basically the platoon was wiped out. So like, losing 10 people in a platoon is like a disaster. It's not good. So it was not good. It was pretty bad. Um, the impact of cluster munitions is basically what's going on is that Ukraine doesn't have enough ammo and the rest of the world doesn't have enough ammo to give Ukraine at the moment because all the powers that be, they decided to take as long as humanly possible to start ramping up manufacturing of shells. Um, so we don't manufacture enough shells per year to help Ukraine at the moment. So while we're ramping up these shells, which the production is it should increase in like November. It should like by November it should reach the new production like quota or whatever you want to call it. So from now to November, Ukraine needs ammo. There needs to be some source of ammo for Ukraine between now and November. Now, that's where the cluster munitions come in for two reasons. First, we have a whole bunch of cluster munitions, like we have a lot of shells, so that's one reason that they're useful, just the numbers. But also, the second reason is that it takes fewer cluster munition shells to roughly equate to as much damage as a high explosive shell would be. So I don't know the exact figures, but let's just say, like, if you wanted to accomplish a certain goal, like to stop a Russian assault or whatever the goal is. Let's say like it would take 10 high explosive rounds. With cluster munitions, maybe it'll take two or something like that. So it's fewer shells to accomplish the same task. So those are two reasons the cluster munitions are helpful to Ukraine. First, it takes fewer shells to accomplish whatever task you have on average. And the second is that we have a whole lot of them. Um, but basically, the whole idea is to buy time until November when the production increases to the newer, the, the expected new rates. That if they hit the production figures that they claim they're going to hit in November, Ukraine will be getting a sustainable amount of ammo that they need. It won't be as much as they want, but it will be a sustainable number. Uh, and the cluster munitions are to just bridge the gap. Where are they produced? I don't know. I can't remember. I'm not an expert on where shells are produced. uh, yeah, cluster munitions can demine in a like if you have to like it's better than nothing. Although you wouldn't really trust it, but it's like in an emergency they can. Uh, yeah, and yeah, cluster munitions they can do a lot of damage per shell. That is really the benefit. So, anyways, that's kind of the cluster thing. So, at first, there's so much political stuff behind the cluster munitions. There's so many political hurdles um, because there's so many different parties who are against cluster munitions in general for like ideological reasons that it creates a lot of potential for um, unlikely like political partners, if you know what I mean. So like different groups of people who would otherwise never work together could work together over cluster munitions because they both hate them so much. So that's kind of the political issue that is going on with cluster munitions, and that's why the United States, to begin with, is only giving certain types of cluster munitions in the hopes of bridging those political gaps, or like basically taking the wind out of their sails, so they're less likely to band together in various unpredictable ways. So, anyways, that's the cluster munition thing. And cluster munitions have gotten better over the years. The high, like they have a relatively high dud rate, but they've gotten better over the years. The dud rate has gotten better because obviously the dud rate is the issue. So so it's the thing that you have to work on. It's like like if you want to manufacture them, then that's the thing you have to solve. So it's gotten better over the years. And if there were never a ban, they would probably be even betterer, but they were banned, so the development stopped. So it's all very counterproductive. Is it's anyway. So I guess I'll get into the news. Uh, in the north, near Kupiansk, or actually not really near Kupiansk, but in the greater Kupiansk area, um, I want to preface this by saying the exact details are unknown to me of exactly what happened. I don't know exactly where or exactly how, and my map might be wrong for that reason. So I just want to preface with that. But basically, in the Novoselivsk area, Russia assaulted, and the Ukrainian force abandoned positions. Now, the exact location of what they abandoned, I don't know. The Russians claim that Ukraine abandoned around this train station and into the town itself. They claim that the first two streets are contested and or under Russian control. So that's the Russian claim. And that's kind of how I mapped it because I don't really have information to refute that because I know that Ukraine lost positions. I just don't know which positions. And the Russians are saying it's these positions. So I just said, whatever, that I know for a fact they lost, that Ukraine abandoned positions. I just don't know which positions they abandoned. So this is the way it's mapped for now. Maybe it's wrong. Maybe they abandoned, this position, or maybe they abandoned this position. I'm not really 100% sure on this. But anyways, so this just seems to be the way it's mapped, I guess. I don't know. So anyway, Ukraine abandons positions and Russia has taken them. Ukraine is then pulled back. So, thank you for the donation. Oh, that reminds me of the donation. That reminds me. Thank you for reminding me. So last week we had language learner on, and he asked. Well, first he came to talk about his project that he's been working on training soldiers, and he asked for donations afterwards. And I have two things to say about that. First, the first thing is that I don't know the number of how much he's raised. Let me check to see if he messaged me. Okay, so he told me that he since that stream and since he asked for the donations, people have donated $13,000, and he's very very thankful for that because their bank account was almost empty. So the $13,000 is a really big deal for him. So that is the one the first thing I wanted to say. The second thing is that I just wanted to say that everyone who sent me money saying that it was earmarked for him, I want to tell you that I sent the money to him, and I also paid all of the transaction fees. So every dollar you sent me, I sent to him, and I paid for the transaction fees. So those are the two things I wanted to say. Uh, Anyways, back to this news. So Ukraine with they lost positions in around in and or around Novoselivsky, and they also repelled a Russian assault right here. They repelled it using artillery. So those are two pieces of news from the Novoselivska area. In addition, Russia is attacking Stelmahivka with no known result. Anyway, so that attack was this afternoon. They attacked Stelmahivka this afternoon with it probably failed. I'm assuming it failed, but there was no news beyond the attack happening. They've also been trying to move west towards Novaya right here. They're trying to like move along this kind of low ground here, again with no results. And they've also been trying to move west from Karmazianivka, again with no results. And I want to reiterate that the border here between the Ukrainian controlled and the Russian controlled, this border is a river, the Zherebets River, and similarly they've been trying to cross the river somewhere around here. I don't know exactly where, but in this general area near Novovodyana. So yeah, that's all kind of the news around here. It's not super exciting. Russia has been trying to advance in this location. They said there's some unconfirmed reports that Russia kind of captured right here. If you look on the satellite imagery, there is obvious really heavy fighting in this general area. I have not updated my map. This is just kind of the way it was before. Maybe I should make this all a gray area. But anyway, there's heavy fighting there too. So yeah, that's kind of the northern part of the line where we generally get very little news. And yeah, I'm glad that the language learner he did a whole bunch of interviews since Friday, or since last Friday. He went on the geopolitics one. He went on Tochny, I think, or I don't know. They're all very or was it the Bond? Anyway, either Tochny or Bond, but I can't remember. They kind of blend together for me because they're back to back. Anyways, so he did a whole bunch of interviews, and I think he did others as well. So yeah, he's a good guy. Anyways, getting back to the news, the around Kremena, there was a Russian assault in this position here. See, I have a little snapshot of the video. You can see they have a tank. They actually had two tanks and a BMP, I think, if not more. Those are the only things I remember, is two tanks and a BMP. I think that's a tank right there. Anyway, and all these infantry, they went on their little assault, and it didn't work out in their favor. So that occurred around here. There's also pretty heavy shelling in this like arc right here around Debrova, to the south of it and to the west of it, just right here, just really heavy shelling. Not sure who's doing the shelling. It's probably everybody shelling. It's just everybody shelling right around Debrova. Okay, so that's kind of the news around there, and obviously they're still attacking Bilahorivka. This is like one of their really big goals, is to capture Bilahorivka, and they've not made much gains there. They've also they've been trying so hard to push up this train track that comes out of this Bilahorivka. Back-to-back Bilahorivkas. But anyways, they've been trying to push up this train track. It's failed. In fact, there was a video today of a Russian who like took his little backpack and he like ran up here like this and surrendered to the Ukrainians and gave like a little interview afterwards. Anyways, so that was a successful surrender by a little Russian soldier in his backpack. And and since moving up this train line has failed, Russia has tried moving up somewhere in this location. I'm not sure exactly where, but it is northwest of Brest. I know, I just don't know exactly where, but in this general area, they've been trying to attack and also failing. Um, yeah, so south of Rostolivka. Last time I was confused because I thought I updated my map to put the Ukrainian control here, and then I said I was going to wait for another satellite pass, and the satellite pass is just a cloud. So I don't really have an update for here, but it does appear if you squint through the clouds, it appears that the fighting has moved up this tree line, and there may be fighting more along like this kind of this perpendicular area to that tree line, as opposed to here, which would it heavily implies that this area is now probably firmly under Ukrainian control, and this is probably the gray area. This is something that I'm going to try to analyze more later today. Part of the issue for me personally, doing streams at this time of day, is that I can't fully analyze everything before the stream. But anyways, so that's something that might be a map update I do later today. So yeah, that's kind of the Rostolivka area, and it makes you think what is going around in this Nikolaivka area, where this train track may be kind of a gray zone, and this area here is very likely a gray zone, and this tree line is likely Ukrainian controlled. So Mykolaiv and Sakoe Vansetti, they might be kind of turning into like a little peninsula here of Russian control. Who knows what's going to happen to those guys? Um, I don't know if K2 is fighting here. But they do have drone operators operating here, but it could be, I mean, just because they have drones here doesn't mean that they're fighting here. You know what I mean? Although they might be. I don't really know. I have no idea because they released footage of them. They had drones attacking right here, and then like a few days later, they released footage of where was it? Uh, I have it marked, I think. If I go back in time. Yeah, it was right here. They released footage of them bombing this area, which is nowhere near over there. This is basically where they were all winter. They were hitting these buildings. I'm gonna go to the other map, to the Google hybrid. They're hitting these buildings. I'm gonna turn off the Russian control too, so it's easier to see. Okay, so they're hitting these buildings. There were like a little Russian who like ran to the woods to hide here. You can see it in that video. But they blew up this building with some solid hits, and this is like the train yard that is between Verkno Kamyanka and Zolarativka. So it's this big train yard that this train yard was once a really important Ukrainian position, but they unfortunately lost it. Um, the past few months would have gone pretty differently if they never lost that position. But what can you do? Anyways, so they lost this position and got pushed down the hill, which is very unfortunate. This was back when Lysychansk fell, and if you remember, there was kind of this push from Bilahora and Ustanivka, where they kind of attacked Myrna Dolina, and the Ukrainians. I think from what I could understand, the Ukrainians intended to hold this position for maybe a day or two while they consolidated forces kind of back here. But it didn't work out that way. They lost the town like in an hour or something, and it just caused kind of what appeared to me to be a rout. Although, who knows? Maybe it just appeared that way. Maybe it wasn't that at all. But it just from my perspective, it looked kind of like everything was going wrong. So, but yeah, they kind of lost here, and then they tried to hold on to this town, and they lost that too, and then they tried to hold on to the oil refinery, and they lost that, and then they tried to hold on to this as kind of a last the last stand type thing, and they lost that too, and had to fall back. So so that was all an unfortunate series of events that occurred over a very short period of time. But anyways, that was a long time ago. That was last year, really. I mean, some of this, this is when I say anyway. So this was like April of last year that this all happened. Yeah, or June even. Anyway, so that was that. But anyway, the K2 seems to be operating up there still. I'm not entirely sure where K2 currently is. Because it seemed kind of funny that they released the videos of them hitting this position of drones, and then like the next day satellite imagery came out showing that this position doesn't exist anymore because all these trees have been exploded. It kind of made me think that maybe they were operating up here for a while, and they kind of secretly moved down here to operate a little bit, and they kind of rushed the videos out because like the reason that you don't publish a video is out of fear of like operational security. But if the front line moves so far that it doesn't matter anymore, then what's the fear of publishing a video? You know what I mean? So maybe the front line just moves so fast that they figured the videos may as well be published. Um, Position Cyclops is right here. This is position Cyclops. That's position Cyclops, and this was their other series of videos. Was called Granite. Granite is right here. So these are their two big series of videos that they published. So that's Cyclops, and this is Granite. And they're both relatively close together. uh, okay, so moving on. Where is Marcus? I don't know where Marcus is. Anyway, um, getting into this Bakhmut area, uh, I have no particular news of this northern part. Um, I have no particular news. Have you ever noticed this looks like a bunny? Because it really looks like a bunny. Anyway, so I have no particular news of up here. Not even the satellite shows any differences, other than this tree line here is getting increasingly destroyed by artillery, uh, and so is this one. So these two tree lines are getting increasingly destroyed. But other than that, there's no particular news. The Russia has been trying to push west, but who cares? Now Berhivka is somewhat interesting in that it seems that Ukraine is constantly advancing, but none of the advances are very large. So it's like they maybe one day they're here, and the next day they're there, and the next day they're there. So they're constantly advancing, but none of them are incredibly impressive. But also at the same time, Russia has not been able to stop them. So I'm not really sure what to make of that. A lot of people are saying Berhivka's been captured. That's not true at all. And the latest information we have is basically fighting in this area here. We have video of Ukrainians getting shelled in this position. I think I have a image of this. So you can see sort of this is Russian shelling. These little puffs of smoke, the Russian shelling. You can see this trench line here. So this is what presumably Ukraine was assaulting this trench line. Whether the trench line is Russian controlled or not controlled by anyone, I'm not really sure. But that is right around here, right? So I believe that the trench line is probably here. And so, yeah. And the Ukrainians were being shelled all along this railway. So they're getting shelled all along the railway. What is K2? K2 is a battalion. They're a battalion. Their brigade doesn't have social media, which is kind of weird. Like pretty much every brigade has its social media account. Like they at least have like a Facebook. But their brigade doesn't. So instead of the brigade running the social media, their battalion does. So they're like a battalion level social media account. That's basically what the K2 is. It's really weird that their brigade doesn't have like a Facebook page or anything. Like there are brigades that they may like almost never post anything, but they at least have a Facebook account. But their brigade just doesn't. They just don't. Anyways, so that's kind of why K2 is a thing. Because otherwise they would have no way of showing off what they do because they want. I would imagine if their brigade had social media, the brigade would be posting the videos, but the brigade doesn't, so they do. Anyways, um, so yeah, anyway, that's kind of what's going on in Berhivka. There was the Ukraine damaged a tank here. I have no idea what kind of tank it was or how damaged it is, but it was on fire, so that's impressive. Although I don't know if the tank was on fire or if like something on top of the tank was on fire. But anyway, um, near Bakhmut, Russia has been trying to push Ukraine away from the city of Bakhmut. They've been trying to push them out of both this kind of northern part and this southern part, just trying to kick them out. Hasn't worked so well. Closer to Klishivka, there's recent footage of this shelling. This is obviously, I mean, maybe not obviously, but it is Russian shelling because you can tell it comes from, not, you can't tell from this image, but from the video, you can tell it comes from the Russian direction. This is like a grad strike. And furthermore, you can see it on the satellite imagery. This strike, it's these dots like right here. They're even in the same shape as this photo. You see, like, anyway. So this strike occurred likely yesterday. Very likely yesterday was this grad strike because it was not there on the 5th and it is there today. It likely occurred yesterday. So we also had footage yesterday of Russian shelling a Ukrainian vehicle in roughly the same position. Getting shelled on this road. So at least as of yesterday, Ukraine was roughly in this position. Now, Russians claim that they counterattacked and pushed Ukraine away. I personally find this unlikely. But I mean, I suppose it could be true. I just find it unlikely. It seems like the sort of thing you would say if things weren't going your way. That's I think that's the way I would describe it. Um, so, anyways, so this is probably all still a gray area. What likely happened? What if I were to guess? I'd imagine Ukraine assaulted, uh, Russia repulsed the assault. Uh, Ukraine fell back to whatever their starting position was, and then Russia said, "See, we recaptured everything," or something like that. That's probably what happened. But who knows? Maybe they did retake ground, even though there's no evidence of it. Uh, anyway, so Ukraine is assaulting both from the west, where there's video of them fighting in this tree line here. There's also some footage of them fighting here, and obviously there's footage of them fighting north of Klishivka. So they're attacking both north and from the west. Russia assaulted, tried to push back on this western thing too, and they were repelled by Ukrainian artillery, basically. Uh, yeah, they sure do say a lot. The Russians sure do say they recapture things all the time with no evidence. Maybe they did. If they did, they should post some evidence. That's my advice. Okay. So yeah, so I have no particular news about this area other than Ukraine. Russia published this video today of them shelling this position, which is pretty far to the west. I'm not really sure what this means. Maybe it's like a supply road or something. I have no idea. So they're shelling that. They're also dropping airstrikes here. Um, there was one yesterday, which is this image, and one today as well. Uh, so yeah, that's kind of that. There's also whole bunches of various Russian things being destroyed, a T-72 and an ammo cache and various other things being destroyed along this area. Yeah, maybe they will Photoshop the same vehicles destroyed over and over again. It seems to be their hobby. You know, why not? Let's just destroy the same vehicles over and over again forever. Um, yeah, around Avdiivka, I have no particular news. There's some videos of Russia, of Ukrainian shelling, which isn't terribly interesting. We know they shell. The most interesting piece of news, which has actually kind of made me sad on the inside, but there was a Ukraine published this video today of them doing this little drone strike on a Russian position, and this Russian position was that position that Ukraine captured at one point that was beyond the pre February 24th line, which means that Ukraine is no longer past that line, which is sad. It ultimately doesn't matter, but it just kind of made me sad to see that video. Um, yeah, there's various destroyed things in Donetsk, Tunguskas and Grads, and all these various things that don't particularly matter. Russian shelling here, not terribly interesting, but it helps you get formulate a front line in your head. So, and also they had another. I can't use that word. I can't even show that word because Twitter. I mean, YouTube is very upset by that word. They had a vehicle that um, it decided to express itself explosively, and it did so right here and made a rather large explosion. Uh, so yeah. Anyway, so you're getting kind of to the more interesting news. All that's kind of boring to me, but so over the past 2 days, on the 5th, we got a satellite image, which I didn't look at until yesterday. And then today we got another satellite image. So I have 2 days worth of satellite image that I can talk about now very briefly because it's not terribly interesting. Okay, so basically all these eyeballs that are currently on the map are areas of obvious heavy shelling and or fighting. So this is likely these eyeballs likely represent a front line. So you could kind of imagine that whether this front line is Ukrainian controlled or Russian controlled or neutral, I can't tell. But these eyeballs are probably roughly the front line. Now, I wish I had my drawer out, but I can't draw. So, anyways, you can imagine this tree line here has heavy fighting on it. This whole tree line here has heavy fighting on it. So does this tree line. And this whole area here, which is right next to Staromayorsky, this whole area here has super, super heavy shelling, as you can see in this image. So basically, there's this whole road, this whole tree line, this whole tree line, all these roads. Not only is it heavy shelling, but you can see all these vehicle tracks. And keep in mind how many vehicle passes it takes to make a track, because one tank driving through is not going to do it on this resolution. It's going to be like a lot of vehicles. So this is just a lot going on. And also, these larger explosions, which are possibly airstrikes or some sort of missile or something. It's hard to tell exactly from this resolution, and also there's one over here too. So yeah, that's all the things going on around Staromayorsky. Similarly, all of these forests are getting torn apart, and we had a video of a Russian assault where they tried to assault up this tree line. They got to around here and got torn to pieces by artillery, and then they turned around and ran away, basically. So if this is where Russia is assaulting, it doesn't bode well for them, if you know what I mean. So this is Priutny right here. So this would be basically them assaulting out of Priutny. And today we got video of Ukraine shelling Priutny itself, shelling these particular houses, which are right here in the town. So at this point, it we don't know how old these videos are. So these videos could be older. They could be from a week or two ago. I don't know. So, but it doesn't bode well for the Russians. That they're basically pushed back to the town of Priutny. They don't appear to really have any control projecting out of the town north, seeing as how they tried to establish this type of control but got repelled. So that's kind of the Prutny area. More in somewhat interesting. I compared today's imagery to the imagery from the 5th. So this is like a 1 day difference basically, and I was really trying to see if there's fighting, like signs of heavy shelling in 360 degrees around Priutny, and I couldn't find it anywhere. So I couldn't find any heavy shelling in a 360-degree arc around Priutny. This was the same sort of thing that I saw around Rivnapil, where there was a point where there was really heavy fighting to the north of Rivnapil, like around this area, and then all of a sudden there was no obvious signs of fighting for like a week, and then there were signs of fighting down here. Um, that's kind of what I'm seeing in Priutny. I'm not saying Ukraine has captured the town, um, but I don't know. Maybe in a day or two we'll see heavy fighting down here, as not a day or two, but the next satellite pass, which would be in 3 days. So yeah, that's kind of that. So the 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 only heavy shelling that I could see today on the satellite imagery are these two dots here, uh, which are, to the west of Novodonetsky and to the east of Yerozhiny, um, and also these two dots here, which are both south of Rifnapil. So those are the only four positions where I found new heavy shelling, which is kind of disappointing, to be honest. I thought there would be just more. And that kind of gets to it seems that the Ukrainian offensive is slowing down a lot recently, compared to what it was like 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago. It seems to be slowing a lot. Um, I don't see so much evidence of new fighting around Rabitna. I don't see anyway. I don't see how anyway too much new fighting there. I don't see too much new fighting around Prutny or Staromayorsky. So yeah, I just don't really see too much new fighting. It's just kind of disappointing altogether. I don't know what that means. It could be that the fighting has moved up and it's just not visible yet, and we need a few more days of fighting in those new positions for it to be obviously seen. That could be one way to describe what's happening. Another way to describe it could be an operational pause. Um, those are kind of the two ways that I could describe it. Anyways, that's more or less the news that I have. Um, so if I go back to Rabitny, um, these eyeballs all represent signs of heavy shelling. And as I said, there's no signs of heavy shelling. So these images are from the 5th. I marked it yesterday, but they're actually from the 5th. And I compared it to today's image. And in all of these locations, I saw no difference. So between the 5th and today, there's no obvious signs of change. So all of these likely represent a front line, perhaps. Maybe likely a gray area, where there may have been heavy fighting before, and Ukraine withdrew, or perhaps I don't know. You can kind of do your own analysis to that, but there was heavy fighting there recently, but not yesterday. Let's put it that way. Um, yeah. So there's that. Uh, that's kind of the news I have, to be honest. it's, there's not like terribly much to talk about. Um, could the reduced shelling be just due to lack of ammo? That could be. It could be just lack of ammo. I don't know if there is a lack of ammo, but that could be it. That's one explanation for it. I've heard well we've heard the Russians were complaining that they didn't that their artillery weren't shooting as much. Now, they weren't saying that they were incapable of shooting. They were just saying they weren't shooting as much. The way that I interpreted that statement was that when the offensive started, Russia kind of had a policy where if something moved, you would just shoot it a lot. You would just shoot it, okay? So if you see one guy walking, shoot 20 shells at it, okay? Like that, I think that was kind of their policy they had. And then the way I interpret that these statements from the Russians that they're not shooting as much, it seems more that they moved more to like instead of shooting everything that moves, maybe we should check to make sure if it's like a worthy target. So if it's just like one guy, maybe don't shoot it. But if it's like 10 guys, shoot it. Maybe that sort of policy, that would be more rational, I would say. So just because they were shooting less doesn't mean they're incapable of shooting. There's a big difference. So I don't know if they've actually if they're running out of ammo or anything like that, so much as they're just saying they're shooting less. The Russians are also saying that Ukraine is shooting a lot less. They're saying that Ukraine has dropped to pre pre-offensive level shelling, which is to say, not shelling very much. Because when the offensive started, they were shooting like 200 shells per day per gun. If they drop to like pre offensive level shelling, that's going to be like, I don't know, 10 or 20 shells per gun or something like that. So we would be talking about like 90%, like 80 to 90% drop in shelling for the Ukrainians. And I don't know if that's true or not. I mean, I don't know. I don't have like stats and figures. We're just going based off of anecdotal evidence, you know. So yeah. I don't really have too much to say beyond that, to be honest. Yeah. So by objective means, it seems that Ukraine is still advancing, but the advance is slowing. I think that would be fair to say. And what that means in the big picture, I don't know. Uh, so, what would uh, it's just we've gotten some statements from Ukraine that they started their offensive too late, and it made me think, when would have been the best time to start the offensive? Personally, I think like October would have been the best time, because we saw Ukraine. They kind of, they did their whole Kharkiv thing. They kind of crossed, and well, I guess this was like November. So in November, they were advancing in this kind of northern area, right? Advancing towards Svatove, and they eventually kind of ran out of steam, and they kind of stopped. I think when they were running out of steam, not when they were done, but when they were running out, which would be, I don't know, when would that be? I guess like the end of, yeah, I would say October. Anyway, so I like October. I think like the first week of October would have been the time to attack. Um, Now, personally, I would never attack here. I think attacking over here would have made more sense, or even here, near Siversk. I don't know, but I think attacking in October would have been the time to attack. But that would have required the other allied countries doing a lot more, a lot faster, which they just weren't prepared to do, apparently. So that would have meant that like all of the tanks would have had to have been sent to Ukraine in like last May instead of this spring. It would have had to be like last spring or early summer. Uh, they would have had to have had sent all the ammo earlier. They would have had to do everything faster. It would have required France and Germany doing, they would have to have started acting immediately, whereas it seemed that they took like 8 months to get their act together. For Ukraine to do their offensive when they needed to, like Germany would have had to have responded in February instead of waiting until like September or whatever. So yeah, so I don't know. There are also various political things going on that I don't really want to get into because I don't really know the I mean internal politics in Ukraine. I don't really know their internal politics. I just know that it wasn't helping. The thing that stopped the Ukrainian advance and around Svatove was that Russia had an established defensive line that Ukraine was having to push into. You have to realize that this area, like north of Svatove, this whole area is it's more hilly than you think it is. Hill is the wrong word. It's not hilly. It's not hilly. It's like bumpy. It's not really hills. It's like bumps in the ground. Okay, but there's more terrain here than you think there is. It's like a wave in like a pond, where it kind of goes like up and down and up and down, up and down, up and down, up and down, where it's difficult to assault. It's more easily defended than assaulted. So that's the issue that Ukraine ran into. They ran into this natural terrain that Russia could defend, and Russia spent the time defending it. They built the defenses. They were determined to use they were determined to stop the Ukrainian advance, and this was where they could. So that's what happened. It wasn't that Ukraine wanted to stop, it's that they couldn't continue anymore. That was probably the best possible time to attack somewhere else, but Ukraine didn't have the resources. They just didn't have the resources. Um, yeah, we can look at it in 3D, and you'll see. That area is just not as flat as you think it is. Or the terrain isn't. It's more easily defended than you think. Um, it's these sorts of like little valleys that any individual one you might be able to easily attack, but there are just tons of them. It's like all of these little channels that force an attacker into a predictable avenues of attack. That's the issue. So Ukraine kind of got up to this area where they had high ground looking down, but pushing down themselves was just difficult. And when you go further north, see if this area north of Kupiansk, Ukraine probably could have taken if they wanted to, but there was no real benefit to it because there's no obvious way to move east out of this region. If you go north, you can go north, but you can't really go east. So there's no reason to expend the resources. And over here, where you can go east, you have this natural terrain that's an issue, and and the same sort of thing goes for like Chervona Papivka, where you know you know Ukraine might be on the high ground because they did push up to like here at one point. Ukraine might be on the high ground, but Russia can also fight from over here, and it's this whole big issue. It's the terrain is it's not as straightforward as it may immediately appear. So that was the natural defense that Russia took advantage of. Now the issue for Russia is that if Ukraine breaks this defense, Russia they have this river here, whatever it's called. I can't remember the name of it. But they have this here, which is like the next line, I guess. But after that river, there's like really no defense. So it's if Ukraine broke this line, it would be really bad for Russia. But and a lot of people were really hopeful for that reason that Ukraine could find a way to break it. And perhaps in theory, if Ukraine threw enough resources at it right now, they probably have enough resources to break the line. But it's not what they want to spend the resources doing. So they want to use them doing something else. It's the map frozen. Hey. Oh, my bad. uh, yeah, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Yeah, I messed up. Sorry, you couldn't see it. Here, I'll just show it again. Uh so this is the hill that Ukraine got up to. And you can see they can see down the hill, but there's these 3D features. There's these hills or bumps or whatever you want to call them. They're like these little valleys all over that Russia could defend. This is what I was trying to show before, but I messed up. And if you go down to Chervono Popivka, um, it's the same sort of issue where Ukraine pushed up to like around here at one point on this kind of hill and like over here on this kind of hill, but they could never get into the town. And the Russians have this hill that they could use to, overlook it. So this is But anyways, that's what I was trying to show. That it's just has these bumps. Um, so yeah, that's the issue. Uh, yeah. So what happened? The reason why you couldn't see it is because I have various different monitors going. I have both actual monitors and virtual monitors, and I showed it on the actual monitor that I film from, that I screen record from, but it was a different virtual monitor on that monitor, so you could only see the other virtual monitor. So that's what I did wrong. Anyway, I'm sorry. Anyways, so that's kind of the issue. Uh, anyway, I don't really have much else to talk about for today. Um, the cluster munitions are good news. The bad news is how badly Ukraine needs the cluster munitions, but that's another story. Um, the good news is that Ukraine is advancing. The bad news is that they're advancing very slowly and appear to be going slower over time. The good news is that Ukraine is destroying a lot of Russian equipment. The bad news is that Ukraine is taking a lot of casualties doing it. Um, so yeah, that's kind of the summary. That's all I gotta say for today. I'll be back on Tuesday, and maybe there will be different things to talk about then. Oh, what is going on in the Sumi region? Just mostly back and forth shelling, mostly. It's nothing terribly exciting. There was a Russian attempt to send uh, troops across the border. Although I don't know where that happened, I could never find where that actually happened. But Russia did try to send troops across the border and didn't work out. But other than that, they have been mostly just shelling of border towns on both sides of the border. Ukraine blew up a substation. Blew up is a kind of a strong term. They dropped grenades on a substation. But yeah, there's yeah, if you turn on the artillery markers, I mark the shelling whenever I get reports. I don't always get a ton of reports. What was that? I can't remember that. Oh yeah, they blew up a truck with a drone. But yeah, it's just basically just border shelling. Uh, it's not super interesting. There was the meat cube, but we don't need to talk about the meat cube. All right, so I'll see you on Tuesday. Thank you for listening, everybody, and goodbye. Oh, I didn't see the video from Marcus, so I can't talk about it. Or if I did see it, I don't associate it with the name Marcus. Let me put it that way. If there was a video by a man named Marcus and I saw it, I did not think of it as this was made by Marcus. So just saying the word Marcus does not ring a bell. All right, so I'll